The moment the first energy pulse struck, Captain Elena Rodriguez knew something was terribly wrong. The deep space exploration vessel Horizon had been tracking an anomalous quantum signature near the Andromeda boundary, a region of space notorious for its unpredictable gravimetric distortions and rare mineral deposits. Their mission was supposed to be a routine scientific expedition, mapping uncharted territories and collecting data that could revolutionize humanity's understanding of interstellar physics. Instead, they were dying. The first attack came without warning, a devastating burst of quantum resonance weaponry that tore through the ship's advanced deflector shields as if they were tissue paper. Klaxons screamed throughout the corridors, their electronic wails a counterpoint to the thunder of explosive decompression. Elena watched in horror as entire sections of the ship simply disappeared, vaporized by weapons technology far beyond anything humanity had encountered before. Jack Holbrook, the ship's lead quantum engineer, burst onto the bridge, his environmental suit partially sealed and his face a mask of determination. "Captain," he shouted over the chaos, "we're being targeted by something that shouldn't exist." His hands flew across the emergency communication panel, attempting to establish any kind of connection with Earth or the nearest human outpost. The bridge crew moved with a precision born of years of training, each member responding to the catastrophic damage with a combination of terror and professional discipline. Maria Santos, the navigation officer, worked frantically to plot an escape vector, her fingers dancing across holographic displays that flickered and died with each successive hit. To their port side, the tactical display showed their attackers, a fleet of ships that seemed to phase in and out of normal space, their hull designs unlike anything in human or known alien databases. "They're not even trying to communicate," Elena muttered, her mind racing. The Horizon was humanity's most advanced deep space exploration vessel, equipped with cutting-edge quantum shielding and adaptive combat systems. Yet they were being dismantled like a child's toy. Another massive impact rocked the ship. Jack was thrown across the bridge, smashing into a damaged communication console. Blood trickled from a cut on his forehead, but his eyes remained focused. "Their quantum signature is impossible," he said, pulling himself up. "It's like they're existing in multiple quantum states simultaneously. Our targeting systems can't get a lock." Elena knew they had minutes at most. The ship's emergency protocols were clear: preserve human life at all costs. "Prepare evacuation sequence," she commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Priority on data cores and critical research materials." Escape pods began launching, each one containing a carefully selected mix of crew members, engineers, scientists, tactical specialists. Each pod was designed to be self-sufficient, with minimal resources but maximum survival potential. They would scatter across different vectors, making it impossible for the attackers to eliminate the entire crew. Jack worked alongside Elena, transferring critical research data into compact quantum storage units. Their mission had been more than just exploration. They were searching for evidence of a fundamental breakthrough in quantum communication that could change humanity's understanding of interstellar travel. "They're targeting our data," Jack said, his voice tight with anger and frustration. "This isn't just an attack. It's a surgical strike to eliminate our research." The ship continued to break apart around them. Sections vented atmosphere, creating a deadly ballet of destruction that would have been beautiful if it weren't so terrifying. Elena watched as another section of the Horizon was simply erased from existence, taking with it years of human effort and exploration. "Not everything," Elena responded, her hand closing around a small quantum data core. "They haven't won yet." The final moments came quickly. Elena activated the last emergency protocols, ensuring that even if the ship was destroyed, fragments of their research and mission data would survive. Escape pods continued to launch, each one a small beacon of hope in the vast, cold darkness of space. As Elena and Jack prepared to evacuate, a massive energy pulse consumed the bridge. The last thing Elena saw was the tactical display, showing their attackers, the Kraax hegemony, believing they had completely destroyed humanity's most advanced exploration team. They were wrong. Terribly, catastrophically wrong. The moon's surface was a nightmare of razor-sharp obsidian rocks and toxic atmospheric haze. 17 survivors huddled in the makeshift shelter cobbled together from 3 damaged escape pods, their hope hanging by a thread thinner than the environmental barrier protecting them from the hostile environment. Jack Holbrook stood over a makeshift workstation, surrounded by salvaged equipment that looked more like a mad scientist's fever dream than a legitimate research setup. Broken quantum communication modules lay beside fractured power cells, computer chips, and fragments of advanced sensor arrays. His hands moved with a precision that bordered on religious fervor, transforming what others would see as garbage into potential salvation. "We're not just survivors," he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. "We're humanity's last hope." Captain Elena Rodriguez watched him work, her tactical mind already several steps ahead. The survivors represented a cross-section of humanity's best and brightest: engineers, xenobiologists, quantum physicists, and tactical specialists. Each person brought a unique skill set that might mean the difference between extinction and revenge. Maria Santos, the navigation officer who had survived the initial attack, was busy mapping their location. The moon was rich in rare earth elements, a geological treasure trove that might just save their lives. "We're sitting on enough mineralogical resources to rebuild half our communication systems," she reported, her fingers tracing holographic maps that flickered with each movement. The medical officer, Dr. Robert Kim, moved between the survivors, checking their physical and psychological conditions. The trauma of the attack was etched into every face. Blank stares, nervous twitches, the occasional sob quickly stifled. But beneath that trauma burned something else, a collective rage that would become their greatest weapon. Jack suddenly let out a laugh that was half triumph, half madness. "Look at this," he called to Elena, spreading out a complex diagram made from interconnected salvaged components. "The cracks destroyed our ship, but they gave us something far more valuable, the key to their own destruction." He explained how the fragments of the Cryax weapon systems they'd managed to collect revealed something extraordinary. Their quantum communication network was both their greatest strength and their most significant vulnerability. Unlike human communication systems that relied on multiple backup and redundancy protocols, the Cryax network was a tightly integrated quantum mesh, brilliant in its complexity, but catastrophically fragile if disrupted. "It's like they've built the most intricate glass sculpture," Jack continued, "and we're going to find exactly how to make it shatter." Elena understood immediately. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about sending a message that would echo through the galaxy and ensure the Cryax would never again underestimate humanity. The survivors began working in shifts. Some harvested mineral resources from the moon's surface, wearing protective suits that were barely holding together. Others worked inside, breaking down and rebuilding technology with a desperation that bred innovation. They were creating something that had never existed before, a weapon of pure technological vengeance. Robert Kim approached Elena during a quiet moment. "We've lost so many," he said softly. 63 crew members died in that initial attack. Our entire mission, years of research, preparation, hope, vaporized in minutes. Elena's response was cold and calculated. "We're going to make them pay for every single life." As night fell on the alien moon, the survivors' shelter became a hive of activity. Quantum processors were rewired, communication modules were cannibalized and rebuilt, and a plan began to take shape. They were transforming their grief, their rage, their loss into something powerful. Jack looked up from his workstation, his eyes reflecting both exhaustion and an almost supernatural determination. "We're going to turn their own technology against them," he said. "Not just destroy them, but show them that humanity is something they should never have underestimated." Outside, the moon's toxic atmosphere swirled around their shelter, a bleak, unforgiving landscape that matched their current state. But inside, something was brewing. something that would change the course of galactic history. The Kraax thought they had won. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The first prototype of the quantum cascade disruptor looked like something salvaged from a madman's workshop. Exposed circuitry created a web of copper and quantum reactive alloys, pulsing with an energy that seemed to bend the very air around it. Jack Holbrook stood back, his face illuminated by the device's erratic blue-green glow, a mixture of triumph and terror etched into every line of his expression. "It shouldn't work," whispered Maria Santos, the ship's former navigation officer, now Jack's primary technical assistant. "By every conventional rule of quantum mechanics, this is impossible." The device was a symphony of impossible engineering. Jack had cannibalized components from their destroyed ship, alien sensor arrays they'd managed to salvage, and additional materials mined from the moon's rich mineral deposits. Each piece was meticulously placed, not just assembled, but woven together with a precision that bordered on artistry. Captain Elena Rodriguez watched from a reinforced observation area. The shelter's makeshift laboratory hummed with tension, every survivor understanding that this device represented their only hope of revenge, and potentially their own extinction. Dr. Robert Kim monitored the biological impact zone, concerned about the potential radiation and quantum instability. "The energy signatures are unlike anything we've ever seen," he reported, his voice a mixture of scientific excitement and deep concern. "It's not just a weapon. It's a complete quantum communication network disassembler." Jack's explanation was both brilliant and terrifying. The quantum cascade disruptor wasn't designed to destroy through conventional means. Instead, it would create a cascading quantum interference pattern that would systematically unravel the complex quantum communication networks the Kraax relied upon. Imagine a virus that didn't just attack a computer system, but fundamentally rewrote the mathematical language the system used to communicate. "Their entire military relies on instantaneous quantum communication," Jack explained, his fingers dancing across a holographic interface. "Every ship, every command center, every strategic decision depends on a network so integrated that it's essentially one massive living system. We're going to give that system a fatal seizure." The first test was scheduled with military precision. The survivors had divided themselves into teams, each responsible for monitoring a different aspect of the device's performance. Failure wasn't an option. They had one shot at creating a weapon that could avenge their fallen comrades. Maria's hands moved across the control panel, her expertise in navigation translating perfectly to the intricate quantum calculations required. "Quantum alignment at 62%, she called out. "Stability matrix is holding, but we're seeing significant energy bleed at the quantum entanglement nodes." Jack cursed, making rapid adjustments. The device wasn't just a piece of technology. It was a living entity they were coaxing into existence. Each modification was like performing surgery on a quantum-level organism that could collapse into meaningless energy at any moment. "We're essentially trying to create a weapon that can give an entire alien communication network a simultaneous stroke," Jack muttered. "And we're doing it with salvaged equipment and pure human determination." The first test pulse was devastating. A localized quantum field erupted from the device, causing nearby electronic equipment to flicker and die. But more importantly, it created a quantum interference pattern that seemed to momentarily exist in multiple states simultaneously, a technological magic trick that defied everything known about communication networks. Elena approached the device, her military background struggling to comprehend the pure scientific madness before her. "Will it work?" she asked simply. Jack's response was neither completely affirmative nor negative. "It will work differently than anyone expects. That's the beauty of human innovation." As night fell on the alien moon, the quantum cascade disruptor continued to pulse, a beacon of human resilience, a promise of revenge, and a testament to the incredible potential of human creativity when pushed to its absolute limits. The Kraax had made a critical mistake. They had not just attacked a ship. They had awakened a species with an unbreakable spirit of innovation. and they were about to pay the ultimate price. The captured Kraak scout ship sat like a predator in their makeshift hangar, its obsidian-like hull absorbing light in ways that defied human understanding. Jack Holbrook moved around the vessel with the careful precision of a surgeon, his fingers tracing quantum communication nodes and alien circuitry with a mixture of reverence and calculated destruction. It's not just about copying their technology, he explained to Elena Rodriguez, who watched with a tactical commander's keen eye. We need to understand their entire communication ecosystem, every quantum flutter, every data transmission pattern. Maria Santos worked alongside him, her navigation skills proving crucial in deciphering the ship's complex guidance systems. The team had spent weeks dissecting every millimeter of the alien vessel, creating a map of its technological vulnerabilities that would make their infiltration possible. Dr. Robert Kim monitored the biological interfaces, discovering something remarkable. The Kraak's communication systems were so tightly integrated with their biological processes that they had essentially become a single organic technological organism. They don't just use technology, he explained. They are the technology. This discovery changed everything. The infiltration plan was madness personified. They would modify their salvaged scout ship to not just mimic Kraak's communication signatures, but to essentially become a living part of their network. Jack developed a quantum camouflage system that went far beyond simple signal mimicry. It would create a holographic quantum signature that was indistinguishable from a genuine Kraak's vessel. We're going to turn ourselves into a digital ghost, Jack said, his eyes burning with a combination of scientific excitement and pure vengeance, something that exists between detection and imagination. The modifications were painstaking. Each quantum communication module was carefully rewired, alien biosensors were recalibrated, and complex algorithmic disguises were developed. Maria created navigation protocols that would allow them to move through Kraak space with the same predictability as a standard patrol vessel. Elena reviewed the final infiltration strategy. They would approach the Kraak's fleet using a standard scout route, mimicking a routine reconnaissance mission. The quantum cascade disruptor would be hidden in a modified cargo compartment, shielded by quantum dampening fields that would make it virtually undetectable. One wrong move, Elena cautioned, and we become space dust. The psychological preparation was as crucial as the technical modifications. Each team member had to internalize Kraak's communication patterns, their rhythmic language, their precise movement protocols, the almost mechanical predictability of their interactions. They studied intercepted communications, behavioral patterns, and quantum transmission logs. Robert Kim developed a breakthrough approach to biological mimicry. By analyzing the quantum communication interfaces, he discovered that the Kraak's vessels responded to biological stress markers. They would need to modify their own physiological responses to match the expected patterns of a standard scout crew. It's like method acting, he explained, but at a quantum level. Jack's quantum camouflage system was their ultimate weapon. Unlike traditional stealth technologies that simply tried to avoid detection, this system would actively integrate with the Kraak's network. They wouldn't just be hiding, they would be becoming part of the system itself. The night before their mission, an eerie calm settled over the team. They had transformed from survivors to something else entirely, a precision instrument of human revenge. Each person understood the impossible odds they were facing. A single Kraak scout vessel attacking their primary fleet was unprecedented. They would need to be perfect in every possible way. Elena gathered the team for a final briefing. Her words were simple but carried the weight of their entire mission. We're not just attacking, she said. We're sending a message that humanity cannot be erased, that every attack will be met with innovation beyond their comprehension. As the modified scout ship prepared for launch, the team moved with a synchronicity that seemed almost supernatural. Jack made final quantum alignment adjustments, Maria plotted their infiltration route, and Robert monitored their biological interfaces. They were no longer just survivors. They were humanity's revenge. The void between Cryak's fleet vessels was a mathematical nightmare of precision and potential death. Jack Holbrook's fingers moved across the quantum interface with a surgeon's delicacy, each movement calculated to maintain their impossible disguise. Sweat beaded on his forehead, though the environmental suit's temperature regulation should have prevented any such human response. Incoming verification scan, Maria Santos announced, her voice a studied monotone that betrayed none of the terror coursing through her veins. Quantum signature matching protocol in 3, 2, 1. The ship held its breath. Their modified Cryak scout vessel had passed through 3 critical checkpoints already, each passage a dance along the razor's edge between detection and survival. Jack had developed a quantum camouflage system that was less a technological trick and more a work of scientific sorcery. It didn't just mimic Cryak's communication, it anticipated their entire communication ecosystem. Dr. Robert Kim monitored their biological interfaces, ensuring that every physiological response matched the expected patterns of a Cryak scout crew. Stress markers are within acceptable parameters, he reported, but we're pushing the limits of our quantum disguise. Captain Elena Rodriguez sat in the command position, her military training wrestling with the pure insanity of their mission. They were essentially a virus infiltrating the most advanced communication network in the known galaxy. One mistake, 1 millisecond of inconsistency, and they would be vaporized before they could even comprehend their failure. The ship's interior hummed with a tension that felt almost alive. Each survivor understood the impossible odds they were facing. They weren't just trying to survive. They were attempting to deliver a weapon that would fundamentally destroy the Cryak's military capability. Approaching primary fleet boundary, Maria called out. Her hands danced across navigation controls that looked like they were pulled from some impossible fusion of human and alien technology. Quantum drift is minimal. Our signature is holding. Jack's response was a grunt of concentration. He was simultaneously managing multiple quantum communication layers, creating a camouflage so perfect it was essentially a living lie. We're threading a needle through a hurricane, he muttered. The Cryak's fleet was a marvel of technological integration. Thousands of vessels moved with a synchronicity that seemed more like a single organism than individual ships. Quantum communication links pulsed between them like neural networks, creating a military ecosystem that had conquered dozens of galactic regions. And they had no idea humanity was about to give them a fatal stroke. Another verification checkpoint approached. This one was different, a more intensive scan that would probe deeper into their quantum signature. Jack had prepared for this, creating a multi-layered quantum response that would not just mimic, but actually integrate with the Cryak's communication network. Incoming deep scan protocol, Maria warned. Quantum interference at maximum complexity. The next 30 seconds would determine everything. Jack's fingers moved with a speed that seemed almost inhuman. He wasn't just responding to the scan. He was actively reshaping their quantum signature in real time, creating a living, breathing response that would fool even the most sophisticated detection systems. Elena watched, her hand unconsciously gripping the edge of her command seat. Years of military training had prepared her for combat, for strategy, for the chaos of space warfare. But this was something else entirely. This was pure human innovation pushed to its absolute limit. The scan completed. Silence. "We're through," Maria finally said, her voice a mixture of disbelief and triumph. Jack let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "Not just through," he corrected. "We're inside their primary fleet communication network. We're a ghost in their machine." Dr. Kim's biological monitoring showed their collective stress levels, a symphony of controlled panic and professional discipline. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were humanity's most precise instrument of revenge. The Cryak's fleet continued its methodical movement, completely unaware that within their midst, a weapon was being carefully, meticulously prepared. Humanity's response to near extinction was about to be delivered. The flagship of the Cryak's fleet loomed like a massive obsidian nightmare, a construct so complex it seemed to breathe with its own technological metabolism. Jack Holbrook's hands trembled slightly as he prepared the final quantum integration sequence for their most dangerous maneuver yet. Docking protocols initiated, Maria Santos announced, her voice a carefully modulated whisper. We're being guided into secondary maintenance bay Gamma 7. The precision required was beyond human comprehension. They weren't just docking. They were inserting themselves into the most protected heart of the alien fleet's central command vessel. Every quantum signature, every microscopic communication burst, every thermal exhaust pattern had to be absolutely perfect. Dr. Robert Kim monitored their biological camouflage. Stress markers are within acceptable cryox physiological parameters, he reported. But we're pushing the absolute limits of our quantum disguise. Captain Alina Rodriguez studied the holographic display of the ship's internal structure. Years of military training had prepared her for complex infiltration missions, but this was beyond anything humanity had ever attempted. They were about to deliver a weapon that would fundamentally unravel an entire alien civilization's communication infrastructure. The docking process was a ballet of technological deception. Jack's quantum camouflage system wasn't just mimicking cryox communication, it was actively participating in their network, creating a digital presence so perfect it was essentially invisible. Each moment was a calculated risk, a dance along the razor's edge between detection and success. Maintenance protocols are accepting our quantum signature, Maria said, her fingers moving with surgical precision across the navigation controls. We're being routed to the central quantum communication hub. Jack's modified quantum cascade disruptor sat carefully concealed in a specialized containment unit. It wasn't a traditional weapon. It was a technological virus designed to create a cascading quantum interference pattern that would systematically destroy the cryox communication network from the inside out. The internal structure of the cryox flagship was a marvel of biological technological integration. Quantum communication pathways pulsed like veins, carrying information faster than light, creating a network so complex it seemed almost alive. Each corridor, each system was interconnected in ways that defied human understanding. We have a 60-second window, Alina commanded. Precision is everything. Robert Kim's final biological scan showed their collective stress levels, a controlled symphony of fear, determination, and pure human innovation. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were humanity's most precise instrument of revenge. Jack began the delicate process of quantum integration. The disruptor wasn't simply going to be placed, it was going to be woven into the very fabric of the cryox communication network. Each quantum node was carefully mapped, each communication pathway meticulously analyzed. Quantum alignment at 78%, Maria reported. We're threading through their primary communication mesh. The next few moments would determine everything. Jack's fingers moved with a speed that seemed almost supernatural. He wasn't just inserting a weapon. He was creating a quantum infection that would spread through the entire cryox fleet's communication infrastructure. Each movement was a calculated stroke of scientific genius. Insertion point identified, he muttered. Primary quantum communication node is vulnerable. The quantum cascade disruptor began its integration. It wasn't an explosion. It wasn't a traditional attack. Instead, it was a systematic unraveling, a technological cancer that would consume the cryox network from the inside out. Alina watched the holographic display, her military training giving way to a sense of pure, calculated vengeance. They were delivering more than a weapon. They were sending a message that humanity could not be erased. The first signs of quantum interference began to spread. Subtle at first, just minor fluctuations in communication pathways. But those fluctuations would quickly become a cascading collapse. We're in, Jack said, his voice a mixture of triumph and scientific wonder. The quantum cascade disruptor is fully integrated. The cryox flagship continued its methodical movement, completely unaware that within its most protected systems, a weapon was about to fundamentally rewrite the laws of their technological existence. Humanity's response to near extinction was no longer just a possibility. It was happening. The first signs of collapse were almost imperceptible. Quantum communication lines began to flutter, tiny disruptions that seemed like momentary static to the unsuspecting Cracks crew. Jack Holbrook watched the holographic display with an intensity that bordered on religious fervor, seeing what no Cracks sensor could detect, the beginning of a total systemic breakdown. "It's spreading," he whispered to Maria Santos, who monitored the quantum interference patterns. Not like a virus, more like a complete reality reshaping. The quantum cascade disruptor wasn't just attacking communication systems. It was fundamentally unraveling the quantum fabric that the Cryax civilization depended on. Each quantum node became a point of progressive collapse, creating a cascading effect that moved faster than light, more precise than any weapon humanity had ever conceived. Captain Elena Rodriguez studied the developing chaos with a tactician's eye. Years of military training had prepared her for combat, but this was something entirely different. This was science turned into the ultimate weapon of revenge. On the first Cryax vessel, navigation systems began to fail. Coordinate systems twisted in on themselves, creating impossible routing algorithms that sent ships spiraling in completely random directions. Weapon targeting became a nightmare of quantum uncertainty, each targeting solution more impossible than the last. Dr. Robert Kim monitored their biological interfaces, fascinated by the systemic collapse. Their entire technological ecosystem is essentially a living organism, he explained, and we're systematically shutting down its nervous system. The quantum interference spread like a cancer through the fleet. Communication lines became garbled, then nonsensical, then completely non-functional. Entire squadrons found themselves unable to communicate, their sophisticated quantum networks dissolving into meaningless noise. They built a network so integrated, Jack said, that destroying one part means destroying everything. Massive warships began to collide, not through any traditional means of attack, but through complete navigational failure. Quantum communication nodes that once guided hundreds of vessels with perfect synchronicity now sent conflicting, impossible instructions. A 1,000-ship fleet became a chaotic mess of spinning, drifting vessels. Maria tracked the spread of the quantum interference. "It's moving exponentially," she reported. "Each disrupted node becomes a new point of collapse. We're watching a technological ecosystem commit systematic suicide." The most terrifying aspect was the speed. Within minutes, what had been the most advanced military force in the known galaxy became a collection of blind, deaf, and fundamentally lost vessels. Weapon systems fired randomly. Navigation became impossible. Communication dissolved into quantum noise. Elena realized they had created something beyond a weapon. This was a complete technological extinction event. "We're not just destroying their fleet," Jack explained, his voice a mixture of scientific wonder and cold revenge. "We're fundamentally rewriting the laws of their technological existence." Entire command structures collapsed. Quantum communication hubs that once processed billions of calculations per microsecond became nothing more than expensive metal containers. The Cryax had built a civilization so dependent on instantaneous quantum communication that removing that infrastructure was essentially removing their ability to function. Robert Kim's biological analysis showed something even more fascinating. The Cryax weren't just technologically integrated. Their entire physiological response system depended on these quantum communication networks. As the networks collapsed, so did the biological processes that depended on them. "They designed themselves to be so technologically perfect," he muttered, "that they became their own greatest weakness." The quantum collapse spread beyond the immediate fleet. Communication relays hundreds of light years away began to fail. The Cryax would soon discover that their entire civilization had been fundamentally compromised by a single, perfectly designed quantum weapon. Elena watched the holographic display, seeing what no military commander had ever witnessed before. A complete technological civilization being systematically erased, not through destruction, but through the most precise scientific intervention imaginable. Jack's hands moved across the final monitoring systems. "It's done," he said simply. The Kraax fleet, once the most advanced military force in the known galaxy, was now nothing more than a collection of floating debris, completely unable to communicate, navigate, or defend themselves. Humanity had not just survived. They had delivered a message that would echo through the galaxy for generations. The first transmission from the survivors reached Earth 6 standard months after the attack. It wasn't a simple report. It was a comprehensive deconstruction of the most sophisticated military force humanity had ever encountered. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood before the United Earth Council, her uniform bearing the scars of their impossible mission. The massive holographic display behind her showed the complete collapse of the Kraax fleet, a technological graveyard that stretched across multiple star systems. "We didn't just defend ourselves," she said, her voice cutting through the stunned silence of the council chambers. "We demonstrated that humanity is not a species to be underestimated." Jack Holbrook stepped forward, presenting the technical analysis of the quantum cascade disruptor. What had begun as a desperate survival strategy had become the most significant technological breakthrough in human history. The weapon wasn't just a method of destruction, it was a complete reimagining of quantum communication warfare. Dr. Robert Kim's biological analysis revealed something even more extraordinary. The Kraax hadn't just been defeated, their entire civilization had been fundamentally compromised. Their technological integration had become their ultimate weakness, a fatal flaw that humanity had exploited with surgical precision. Maria Santos presented the navigational data, a complex web of quantum interference patterns that showed how a small team of survivors had systematically dismantled an entire galactic civilization. Each chart, each graph was a testament to human innovation born from the most desperate of circumstances. The council members, representatives from every major human settlement, listened in stunned silence. This was more than a military victory. This was a declaration of humanity's potential. "They thought they could erase us," Elena continued, her voice gaining strength. "Instead, they taught us the most valuable lesson of all, that our greatest weapon is our ability to innovate, to adapt, to survive." The full scope of their victory became clear. The Kraax communication network had been so thoroughly compromised that it would take generations to rebuild. Entire star systems that had been under Kraax control were now vulnerable, their sophisticated defense systems reduced to nothing more than expensive metal husks. Jack explained the technical details. The quantum cascade disruptor wasn't just a weapon, it was a fundamental reimagining of quantum communication technology. They had created a method of technological intervention that could potentially reshape how civilizations communicate and defend themselves. "We didn't just fight back," Jack said. "We revolutionized the entire concept of technological warfare." The surviving crew became instant legends. 17 people had done what entire military fleets had failed to do. They had completely neutralized the most advanced civilization in known space. Their survival, their innovation, their pure determination had become a rallying cry for humanity. Maria's navigation logs showed the incredible journey, how they had survived on an alien moon, how they had modified a captured scout ship, how they had infiltrated the most secure fleet in the galaxy. Each detail was a testament to human resourcefulness. Dr. Kim's biological research opened up entirely new fields of study. The way the quantum cascade disruptor had interacted with the Kraax communication systems revealed fundamental new understanding of quantum biology, communication technologies, and interspecies technological adaptation. The United Earth Council made an unanimous decision. The survivors would not be treated as heroes. They would be given full resources to continue their research, to develop the technologies that had saved humanity. "We are no longer just survivors," Elena declared. "We are pioneers of a new era of human potential." The transmission ended, but its impact was just beginning. In research facilities, military academies, and scientific institutions across human space, the story would be studied, analyzed, and celebrated. 17 survivors had changed the course of human history. They had shown that when pushed to the absolute limit, humanity doesn't just survive, it transforms. In the vast darkness of space, a new legend was born, a story of how a handful of humans, armed with nothing but their intelligence, determination, and an impossible weapon, had rewritten the rules of galactic warfare. The Kra'aks had made a fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity, and humanity had responded with a vengeance that would echo through the stars for generations to come.